no matter what, if you are successful or you fail, I think you learn something about yourself. You learn what you're good at, what you're not good at, and where to maybe double down on. If there's anything I've learned over the last couple of years, it's really leaning into what you're naturally talented at.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I am here with JP Albano. I'll start with Amazon best-selling author as of recently for his book, So Rich You Can Quit. So I want to make sure that that is highlighted top of the show. But JP, he helps people in tech sales invest passively in real estate. And so JP, I'm going to really let you tell your story. I think it's always more interesting coming from the guest's mouth. But first, thank you for coming on the show today. I'm super excited to talk.
Likewise. Thank you, Jason, for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's hear your story. Of course, leading to how you became an Amazon bestseller. I think that's an important piece of the puzzle as well for people. It's such a huge part of investing, whether it's active or passive, is education and awareness. So I'm excited to hear kind of all about it.
Yeah, sure. So, my story started as an IT guy. I was in technology for a long time. It's sort of a thing that came natural to me early on. I was a help desk guy. Remember when you have a problem with your computer, you call help desk? Well, I was the guy you called. And my career kind of evolved over that time from help desk to a systems engineer and all those sort of things. About, 14 years ago, about 10 years ago, I found myself being thrust into technology sales. I was working for a technology reseller out of the Northeast. The rep that I was covering as a solutions architect, he had resigned, and my employer was like, "Hey, JP, we don't have anybody in the New York area to cover these accounts. Would you mind filling in?" Sure. I didn't really know much about sales, and I was very nervous about it. Like that was kind of like my first career shift from doing one thing to another thing. And it was a whole thing of personal development going through that. But it was a really great journey making the shift. And I found I was actually pretty good at it and found a lot of success in that. Which leads me to my next problem. When you find yourself making really good money, you have a new set of problems. In this case, paying a lot of money in taxes. And so, fast forward doing this for a number of years in my new sales role, finding success, working my tail off, working the 50, 60 plus hour weeks, just starting a young family and doing this for a couple of years, sort of getting the itch of like, all right, I think I've figured this out. I'm kind of ready for the next thing. But then I'm thinking, well, where am I going to go? I'm making really good money. I'm enjoying my lifestyle. Yeah, I've got some problems with paying, a lot of money in taxes. Almost half my check goes out the window. But I wanted something else. And it got me thinking, like, what can I do in my life where I'm not still selling hard drives for the rest of my life to maintain my income, right? And then it was kind of compounded by the fact that I was paying a lot of money in taxes. And it led me down the path of exploration, of trying to figure out, all right, how do I solve this tax problem? And how do I get rid of this golden handcuffs problem where like you're tied to your job because you're making good money. You go somewhere else, you got to start all over again. And I had a nice lifestyle. I was working from home. I would go into New York City every, couple of weeks or so, but it wasn't tied to going to the office every day sort of thing. Right. Which was really nice. And so I went down the path of realizing that people that, having an active income, right, or earned income, ordinary income, as far as your W-2 goes, it's taxed at the highest rate. And or can be the highest rate. And so when doing some research, you really learn that earning income through capital gains, right, as a passive investor, is a way of potentially paying a lot less in taxes. So I went down that path and I realized, I could do day trading. That could be interesting. So I took a course in day trading and I learned how to read candlesticks and lost a bunch of money, wasted a bunch of time, and realized day trading wasn't for me. Because I tell you what, when the 9 o'clock bell would go off, your heart's pounding, right? Like it was very nerve wracking, and that really wasn't for me. But in doing that, I learned, number one, that wasn't for me. But number two, I realized, what else can I do to earn passive income? And I realized, oh my God, real estate. I can do real estate. So when you go down that path of real estate, you realize there's a whole world of real estate, right? It's not just one thing. It's a lot of different things. And to kind of round up my story here, I found apartment investing, and apartment investing for me at the time, and even now still, I would say, made a lot of sense. I love the model. I love the risk reward profile of it. There's just so many things in your favor that if you're smart about how you're investing and where you're investing in apartments, there's ways of really, really mitigating risk. And that really, really spoke to me. And so I went down the path of learning how to be a real estate investor. And I loved it so much that I thought I was going to be a passive investor, hence my quest for passive income. But I found that I loved it so much. I saw it as the opportunity for me to leave my sales job and become an active investor. And so today, now I help other technology salespeople, tech salespeople that are in software sales or enterprise sales learn how to leverage their high commission checks into passive real estate investing so that they can create their exit plan. So that's the story, my friend.
Yeah. And I think it's, well, at least within the within the real estate space, it's not uncommon to have, sort of a series of maybe job changes or shifts in focus, if you will, as to how you're going to earn income. But I think that tax issue is, I guess it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to make good money, and so it's not so much to complain. But again, let's take that problem, find solutions, right? And so we can. I had the same thing. I sort of came into real estate. Well, I didn't come into real estate for the tax benefits, but when I started to realize what you could do, I really started to structure everything around being able to take advantage of those as much as possible. Ultimately, though, looking for that, kind of passive income and long-term growth of wealth. So you had that shift into sales, whether or not it was on purpose, I guess you were thrust into that role. But I do think I have found, just people I've interviewed on the podcast and meeting them, that's a valuable skill to have and develop. How do you feel that? Do you agree? How do you feel that has helped you kind of moving forward into real estate?
So to be clear, you're talking about how an opportunity presents itself and it's a swim or sink sort of thing. Is that what you're asking? Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think oftentimes that is exactly how it comes up. And then specifically going into sales, that specifics and finding out that you were good at it. I mean, that's lucky. I guess the story ends very differently if you go into that and you're, oh, that was terrible there. But yeah, how did you sort of approach that whole shift and I guess, kind of take it as an opportunity?
Sure. And I'll answer the last thing you said. I think either way, no matter what, if you are successful or you fail, I think you learn something about yourself. You learn what you're good at, what you're not good at, and where to maybe double down on. If there's anything I've learned over the last couple of years, it's really leaning into what you're naturally talented at, right? And of course, you should challenge yourself and go through things of uncomfort. But like, if you're really good at something, like Michael Jordan's an amazing basketball player, right? Like, should we have encouraged Michael Jordan when he was in school to like learn accounting more? Probably not. Like let's really focus on what you're good at and just go all in on that. So that's my quick aside. But to your question, I think what becoming an active investor, or really if you're going to grow as a person, right? Forget the investor part, the real estate part. You're going to grow as a person. You have to realize that, maybe there's going to be seasons in your life. And I think for me at the time, I wasn't aware of that. When I got into investing, I was open to a whole new world of personal development. One of the first resources I got into early on was Bigger Pockets. I know you had Brandon Turner on your show relatively recently. And I have to thank them for like kind of creating this ecosystem of like showing people when you welcome the world of real estate, like that's just one part of it, but like you got to like work on your mindset. You have to work on how you're thinking, how you're showing up for people, how you're showing up for yourself. Right. And that I was really transformed by that. Like the person I am today compared to who I was many, many years ago is very different. And so I looked at it as a challenge that like, hey, I'm going to learn something about myself by doing this. And not that I took it as a sink or swim thing, but like I looked at it as how can I learn from this? How can I grow? How can I improve? And there was a lot of elements of, and even becoming a real estate investor of, we'll call it, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's, give me a second. Imposter syndrome. There we go. Imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. So like, having an identity around yourself about being a certain person, right? Or in a profession wrapped around that. And then when you change that, right? Like becoming an investor and now trying to portray myself as an investor to other professionals in the space, there was a lot of hesitation around that. And until I've had the confidence where I knew the lingo, I knew the language, I understood what people were talking about because I didn't come up in this industry. I came up in technology. So that was a bit of a challenge. And looking back, I mean, I've grown so much through all of this. And in the moment, it's kind of hard to see that. But once you kind of come through that, it's great to be able to look back and see the progress that one has made over that time, and not look at the shortcomings or the things that you could wish you could have done better, but really focusing on how much progress you've made along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it is so important, and I mean that those shifts that happen personally, you really can kind of correlate those to being sort of analogous to real estate, right? It's like a slow and steady growth over time. And so that's what you're looking for, very different than day trading, I'm sure.
Yes.
But that slow and steady growth over time is really what we're going for in real estate as an investment vehicle, but also, in that personal development space that you mentioned. And it is really remarkable because I think when you talk about going into investing, you're talking about, I mean, you mentioned, kind of those mindset shifts. A lot of time for a lot of us, you're talking about just simple math is bigger, right? More zeros on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Then you have to get your mind wrapped around being able, getting comfortable with some of those numbers. And also, imposter syndrome is a big deal when you are coming from another industry, which frankly, a lot of people do. There's not a ton of people that are like grow up in syndication and then go on and continue. But
you don't
to
know
be
that,
in syndication.
right? You just kind of assume everyone's a pro, and that you kind of forget that they all have to come from somewhere. Everyone's new at some point in their life. Period. Right? It's hard to remember that sometimes. And
yeah, especially you see social media. It's like we're seeing most of the time. You're seeing like someone at 5 years in and how great they're doing, and that's amazing, and it's encouraging that that's what the future looks like. So use those things as fuel, but also realize like you're not going to be there day one. So important pieces to understand.
Absolutely.
As you kind of made that shift into real estate and you were starting to overcome some of those imposter syndrome feelings and like making those mindset shifts, maybe it's good for people to hear what you did to what techniques you did to do that. What processes did you put in place to sort of overcome some of that imposter syndrome? Like, it's easy enough for us to say that's a thing that you're going to feel and then you just get over it. But like, that's not probably realistic in the sense that it's just not that easy. So what things did you do, JP, to kind of help work through it?
I would say number one is awareness. And that like having those feelings are completely neutral. That's a good word. Natural and normal. That's what happens when you combine normal and natural together. Right. Neutral.
Right.
It's completely neutral. I'll say it again. And that, so having the awareness. So when it does come up, when you're having discomfort, you can identify it. You can label it like, oh, this hesitation I have about doing X, Y, Z is because I'm nervous about, or apprehensive about blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. That's part one. I think part two is also surrounding yourself in a community of like-minded people of where you want to grow to. So for me, that was early on joining a real estate educational group. So I got involved in a lot of local real estate groups, and those were fine to meet other people, especially when you're just starting out, you're trying to get your bearings on things. But I think there's a lot of value in actually joining a group where you pay, right? You're putting in money so that you are committing yourself to it. And then also a well-curated group where they're trying to attract other like-minded people that have ambitious goals. And you've got a support network basically from doing that. And, you and your friends that you're making here can kind of grow and come up together. That for me is what helped me do that. And then having a really good business partner. I call him my business wife, but real estate, depending on what you do in real estate, man, it's a team sport. So if you can find a great partner where you have complementary skills, not the same skills, you don't want to duplicate, but like complementary, where they're good at operations and you're good at business development, or like vice versa, that's really valuable. That can help you, work through these things. And then there's time. It just takes time to kind of go through this. That's kind of really it. And then one day you wake up. I remember, this is crazy. I remember when I first got started, the concept of like doing, I don't know, like a 200 unit apartment complex was like, oh my God, so big. And then about a year and a half ago, I was going after, like in earnest. I was talking to the broker, booking trips, 1,061 unit complex in Tampa, Florida. And I had to stop myself, like, like have one of these moments where like, do you realize what you're doing right now? Yeah, I'm actually looking at 1,000 unit apartment complex. Imagine doing that when I first started. No, this is nuts. Like that sort of internal dialogue
Yeah.
with myself. And you just realize like, wow, I've totally overcome that. And now I feel like, I'm in the biz now. It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you kind of outlined there. And as you were saying it, I was thinking about how that's really applicable whether you're an active investor or a passive
Totally.
investor. I
Totally.
think like a lot of the resistance that comes from either whether it's investing passively or actively
Mhm.
is just fear. It's that it's having that imposter syndrome, like I can't do this, I don't know how.
Yep.
And so getting around people that are doing it and realizing that it is possible and having that level of education, I think is really super important. And again, recognizing that it takes time,
Yeah.
but at some point you're going to have those, moments like you just described where you're like, never before would I have thought, oh, I'm going to look at 1,000 unit apartment complex. And then one day you're just there
Yeah.
and it's happening and you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this now. And it's the same thing, probably across industries, but it's like you just have to start taking steps and
Yeah.
start moving towards whatever that is, and that way you can realize at some point you're there, you're doing it,
That's right.
and okay, what's the next level of growth look like, that kind of thing. And it becomes more and more comfortable, even though it maybe wasn't at first.
Agreed. And I'll add one thing to that. I think
Yeah.
once you start having this pattern of uncomfort, growth, kind of breakthrough sort of thing, and you do that a couple of times, it becomes a thing that you can quickly refer to and point back to. Like, hey, I just overcame in the last year or so, or 6 months, or whatever the time frame is, doing over these things. I can. It's the same process for whatever it is, coming my way, and it should empower you and give you the confidence to apply that in any aspect of your life, whether you want to be an investor or you want to take your life somewhere else, right? It's just, I think in real estate, for some reason, it's one of these things where because people are coming into it from so many different industries, right, that we all are changing our identities. And so that's such a common first thing that we all overcome. And then once you kind of come into yourself, then you realize, oh, well, that wasn't that bad, right? I can kind of
Right.
apply this to anything in life, and you go into all sorts of different directions.
Yeah. That's it. That's, take the small steps. It's funny story that's sort of related to this, that just last week I had an email from an investor, and he said there was, kind of a monthly update on a development project. And he was saying how in that update there was something about to the effect of like, these are the development costs. And it's like, tens of millions of dollars. And, he's like, oh, I put in my money that to me is a huge amount of money. And then I see these like giant numbers, and it's like, oh, I'm, a percentage of a percentage ownership in this. And it's like, really, there's two things about that to me is like, that's fine.
Mhm.
Like, get started as the percentage of a percentage of ownership.
Yep.
That's okay. Like,
Yep.
nobody starts, like, literally nobody starts out owning, like a $50 million apartment building. That's not how it goes. Like, but you start somewhere. You start where you're comfortable, and then watch things happen and kind of move through it and learn from when things are challenging and all of that. And so, there's that. And then, as you mentioned, like, you get those steps, the rungs on the ladder, I guess, where you're like, oh, this is hard and uncomfortable, and I feel like an imposter. And then guess what? It works out okay. And then you realize that it worked out okay. And then you do the next rung of
Yeah.
the ladder. And it's just believing in it and sort of moving forward. And as you said, like it doesn't, what we're talking about now doesn't even necessarily have to be related to real estate investing specifically.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how, success and growth in life happens.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of an interesting correlation to have it pointed out that way. Like when I got that email and I was like, yeah, that's a thing that I guess I probably thought about
In the beginning.
subconsciously,
Yep.
but never
Yep.
articulated
Yep.
it that way.
Yep.
And I was like, that's actually a really pretty cool thing for him to realize, and probably like for other people that are investing passively or actively, like just get in.
Yeah.
Just get in, do what you can do, and then it's going to grow over
Yeah.
time. That piece of the pie is going to get bigger. Your investment's going to get bigger, like that kind of stuff. So I think it's really fascinating to, kind of to recognize and sort of talk about that growth that probably happens more substantially when you're not looking, right? It's like if you focused on it, and that's you probably maybe hold yourself down a little bit. But I think once we just start doing, then you can look back and see that growth.
Yeah, there's basically two phases of your learning. There's the pre-learning of like, all right, I want to do this thing. I'm not going to do it yet, but I'm going to learn everything I can about it, which is me. I like to analyze things to death. And then there's the stuff that happens after you start, right? You can only learn so much to get to this point. You're not going to go any further. For those that are watching this, I'm putting my hands up, like you just can't get any more. Then you start, right? Whether it's $10, not that you can get an investment for $10, but a relatively low amount. And then the learning begins in phase two. That's where the active learning begins. And whether you're a passive or active investor, there's two different types of things there, but you got to get to that point. Otherwise, you're never going to experience the other half of it. So point is, get started.
Yeah, 100% agree. So you did that. You got started. You have grown your portfolio over time. What are your goals? Kind of what do you see the future looking like for you in terms of your real estate trajectory?
Yeah, it's sort of changed. And I'm one thing that I'm kind of working through, be honest here, is my reimagination of what I set out to do when I got started with this, right? Which was to become, originally was a passive investor. And then I realized I like this so much, I want to be active. So active operator, active owner, sponsor sort of thing. And then going through, like I started in 2019. So like our class of real estate investors over the last few years, man, we've learned everything the hard way, right? Like coming in during COVID, all the COVID nonsense, the eviction moratoriums, interest rates, like it's been a slogfest, right? So all I know is like incredibly freaking hard. That's like the thing that I know, which is great because ideally from this point on, it's kind of downhill in a good sense. But it's the school of hard knocks. So, my original intention was to kind of go in this and acquire as many assets, units as I could as an owner operator. We have our own property management company. And then going through all the brain damage of and the money that we've lost personally, of just putting money down for earnest money deposits, non-refundable deposits, having struggles raising capital for our deals because I didn't have all the marketing systems in place to build out our investor network, things like that. And then you're kind of shifting a little bit to a model where, why don't we just use our expertise, our leverage, our experience, our skills, and partner with other best-in-class sponsors and kind of create an investor club where we bring investors in that want to be passive investors and invest passively in other people's deals. So that's kind of a new approach that we're doing. It's a lot less brain damage for us, and we just get to focus on building relationships with good operators and just doing thorough due diligence on that part, right? And of course, building out our investor network. So that's sort of the newish approach that we're doing. We still want to do our own deals, but it's sort of become a lower priority. But I think that's sort of the next direction that we're going to take until things get a bit easier on the operator side. But some of the groups we're working with, they've got a great base of operations, and they've got really good deal flow coming in. Where someone like us, even though we've done a lot of deals, you can't compare us to someone that's done 10,000 units, right? That's a whole new class of experience. So we try to evolve, and you go with the flow. That's kind of really it.
Yeah, I think that's there's a lot of that. There's a lot of shifting, kind of focus in the market, because as you said, I think 2020, 2021, that
23.
You could almost look at it as like people thought that was easy because there was a lot of transactions happening, but like in reality, that was the leading up to the sort of kick in the pants when we have interest rates jump up and all of that. So it's just, I agree, it's been a very challenging time. I talked to other operators, mentors, everybody's feeling it, and the passive investors, of course, feel it as well. And I think one of my biggest fears about this, when the market is like this, is that it'll like scare people from investing.
Oh yeah,
because they're not thinking about the long term. Like if we look at this from a 5, 10, 20 year horizon, this is going to be a blip on the radar.
Exactly.
And it'll just be, but if you stop, then your blip was just bad.
Yep.
It's just, you've got to kind of keep pushing through and facing the challenges and learning from them.
Yeah.
So
you hit the nail on the head.
Completely get it.
I think people have to remember in real estate, even though this is sort of like new, like interest rates jumping up so fast, unprecedented. Yeah, but it's still part of a cycle. There's always a buyer's market and a seller's market, right? And different elements contribute to those sort of things. And all you're seeing is just timing of the market. It's a cycle, it's cyclical, right? So just depending on where you're at, like these things don't happen in like a month. They play out over a period of time, and there's cycles within cycles. So you could have a big overall cycle, right? This could take over 10 years. And then inside that, depending on what market you're in, you're going to have little sub cycles that are going on, and they all contribute to this. So just keep that in mind. Like this doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it seemingly does. Like one day you wake up and like, oh, we finished that. Now we're in the other market. But like, you just got to kind of keep your head down and roll with the punches.
Yeah. Stick to fundamentals. Learn what works, what doesn't work, shift and adjust where you have to. I mean, that's really how that's business in general. It makes it, and it's easy to say that, I know. Right? It's like, it's easy to say that here as we're having this conversation, but like, certainly, like I said, everybody knows it's a challenging time, and it helps, I think, to kind of talk through this, that this has happened before. And guess what? Then we had 2008, there was a real estate crash, very different than what's going on now. But then we had a 10-year bull run where the market just kept getting better and better. And it's like, so recognizing that that's just how it kind of works, and that nobody really knows how to time the market. It's just kind of sticking to your fundamentals and going through with the good, with the bad.
Exactly.
So, well, JP, I want to get the chance to ask you the questions I ask every guest. First one is related to the name of the show being Know Your Why. And so I always like to ask people, what is your why? What keeps you driven, moving forward? You've had success. You mentioned that you're having a little bit of a shift in strategy, but obviously you're not stopping. So, kind of what keeps you moving?
So I think one of the things that happened to me as a kid, watching my father work. My father worked his butt off. He used to fix CAT scans and MRI machines. First it was X-ray machines, and then it evolved into CAT scans, MRIs. And he would work 10, 12-hour days, and he worked very hard. So I inherited that work ethic, which I think is great. It sort of also has instilled, as I've kind of become an entrepreneur and learned like the skill sets it takes and the excitement of like taking something and building something, right? And building a team. It really drives me to find success in projects. But really, I think what it comes down to is I didn't have a lot as a kid. I think many of the listeners are probably in the same boat, right? That's why you are maybe a high achiever or you're very driven, is not having a lot and kind of realizing like, I don't want that level of uncomfort from a resource standpoint in my life moving forward. How do I stop that from happening? And in the beginning, I would say like also, I'm a family man. I've got 3 little girls. I'm married, happily married, and a wife, and I want to provide things for them. And then as I kind of learn more and see more and hear more, I realize, while it's nice to be able to provide a comfortable, safe environment for your family, I also don't want to spoil my kids so that they don't grow up with that same sense of drive. So I'm kind of personally managing and balancing that. But I think for me and for my wife, like we want to have a comfortable life for ourselves. I want to strive and achieve things, reach my goals, and have fun doing it. And I think what I've determined and learned here is just like the sort of business that I'm in, I derive a lot of satisfaction from. I have a great time meeting people just like you, Jason, going to events and building things and like testing myself and seeing what I can do and what I can build with other people. And that's just been a super amount of fun. The fact that I wrote a book was amazing because I never thought I'd ever write a book. I wrote a book, and it's been incredible to be able to do that. So it's been fun seeing where this goes. I don't know if I answer your question very well, but that's sort of
no, that's great. There's no wrong answer to that question for sure. I think it's funny because really resonates with me. I have similar background, just kind of you have that upbringing where you're like, I think initially, your why is just not going to be like this for me.
I don't be broke anymore, man. This sucks.
Yeah, it's not going to be like this for me forever. It's not going to be like this for my family.
Yeah.
But yeah, I struggle with the same thing. Like you certainly want your kids to be provided for, have a comfortable life, but I don't want to spoil them. I in a way, I like the work ethic that was instilled in me out of necessity. Like, it's kind of like it's a funny thing to try and balance, and so I'm always fascinated by. I guess.
What do? You take your kid's pillow away? You make them sleep on the floor? Like, where's the
right? I'm like, I don't know what the right answer to fix that is, or to help with that. But I think it's probably awareness at first is just recognizing that that's not there's no intent to just like leave them a pile of money, trust fund sort of situation. Like, it's more about let's educate them about the things that I didn't know. Then, so that they can make they can make smart decisions early in life about money when most of us don't get taught that information. So it's education awareness. It almost always comes down to that, like those two things. JP, tell us something about yourself that isn't common knowledge, a special skill, a hobby, something to let the listeners know you better.
Yeah. So about 2 years ago during COVID, I bought a rifle, right? I live in Georgia during the big early phases of COVID. Everyone's scared poopless. Went to the local gun store, me and everybody else apparently, and I bought the last AR-15 they had on the shelf. And it was a DB Diamondback 15, very standard, low budget rifle. Knew nothing about it, didn't know all the things. And like many things in my life, I like to go down the rabbit hole. So I started reading about it and realized, man, I should take a course. And again, like everything I do in life, I go down the path. So I fell in love with doing like these tactical shooting classes. So I just got back from a 3-day event with a bunch of ex-Navy SEALs where we spent, I think I went through 3,000 rounds of pistol and rifle ammo over the course of 3 days in Florida. Wow. Had a blast doing it, no pun intended. And now I find any excuse I can to go out and do these training things. It's a great like community of like-minded men and women, Americans. And it's just fun, like, getting proficient in using firearms and stuff like that. And so that's my new guilty pleasure, I guess, is shooting guns, but like doing it on the not just going to a range and standing there with my legs spread apart and shooting paper target, but like doing dynamic movements. I got an email to do a night vision helicopter shooting thing, which timing didn't work out, but like that's on my bucket list of things to do. Go on a helicopter and like shoot steel targets off a helicopter with night vision on. There you go.
That's like living in a video game. It sounds fun. That's amazing. With I would imagine that would had you shot before? Like, had you owned any weapons before that?
I had a pistol. I still have it. It's my first gun. And I didn't take, my buddy became a cop, so he told me the basic stuff, and that's all wrong. But I didn't do much with it, right? It wasn't fun. It was a SIG P226. So double action. You got to, pull the hammer back, right? It sucks to shoot, but at the time you didn't know any better, right? And I wasn't really big into it. But then when I saw what was out there in the world, like, oh wow, I can do these training courses with people that have these amazing skill sets, and then doing a class and seeing how much fun it was, I got hooked. And now my wife loves doing it, and so we try to find excuses to do it together. Not shooting each other, of course, but like doing those things.
That's amazing. That sounds like a lot of fun. I didn't even know that was a thing.
I know. I didn't know it was a thing either. That's why where has this been all my life?
Very funny. When people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Yeah. So probably my website. Actually, we'll do thetechsalesinvestor.com. That's THE, thetechsalesinvestor.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. But go to thetechsalesinvestor.com. That's a great place to find me and access to or information about my book, So Rich You Can Quit. available now on
And
Audible and audiobook and all the things.
Yeah, and we'll have links to that
Yeah.
stuff in the show notes
Sure.
so we can find you. Final question for you. What piece of advice would you give to someone who wants to get started in real estate? They hear this, they're inspired. What would you tell them as kind of their first steps?
Good question. First steps. I think first steps is immerse yourself in content. So like go to the bookstore, go on Amazon or Audible, and just find things that interest you. Like put in real estate and just go. Like let the universe take
Mhm.
you wherever you need to be taken, right? If you see a book cover that's interesting for you, take it as a sign. Grab the book, read the book, because they're all going to lead you to another thing. And through that process of discovery, you'll learn, hopefully, like what you're naturally attracted to. You might think you want to get into single family fix and flip. Now, there's anything wrong with that, but like that, my cup of tea. Maybe going through that process, you learn, oh, actually, you know what? This interesting thing is mobile home parks. What is that all about? Right? Or maybe it's short-term rentals or whatever. Who knows? You won't know until you explore, and you won't explore until you explore. So I would say that just kind of immerse yourself into the world and start reading, start immersing yourself. That's what I did. I think we all did that, right? Usually a lot of us start off with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's like the required reading for any real estate investor. But once you get through that, you're like, all right, I see it. I see the matrix. I see what you're talking about. Cool. Now where do I go? Right? There's still a lot more reading, Kiyosaki. Wasabi.
Yeah, you gotta get into that, the book list for Real Estate 101. But it's so true. You've just gotta pick a direction. It doesn't have to be the direction that you stay forever. You just gotta pick a direction, kind of get in there.
No, you're right. That's a hard thing. For me, I struggled with that early on. I felt it was difficult to just pick something just to get started. Like I had total analysis paralysis. And I think that's what you said, looking back, I agree with, right? Like, don't worry about picking the wrong thing. Just pick something, learn about it, and you'll naturally like feel resistance towards it. Like, I don't know about this. Cool. That's your sign. That's not your area to start with. Then go back to this and go down the list again. I think that's probably the better way of doing it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I think there's a few high level questions that you can sort of ask yourself or talk to someone, talk to JP, talk to me, talk to someone, find someone who's doing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have tried different strategies. Like a lot of us have, we may talk a lot about syndication on this podcast, but like I've done a lot of different things in real estate and worked in construction. And there are reasons why you might do one or the other. And again, like sometimes it has to do with the market at that time. Like it may be, hey, look, right now, transaction volume is down in apartment complexes. Like, what could I do in the meantime? Maybe I'll flip a house. Maybe I'll, like, they're just like, if you like real estate and you want to learn more and more about it, like there's plenty of ways to get involved, but you do need to pick something to get going.
Yeah. The worst thing is inaction. You have to pick something, do it, explore it, learn about it so that you can make a decision if you like it or not. That's the only thing you can do. What you don't want to do is do nothing. Just keep reading and reading and reading and reading and reading and do nothing. Don't do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the way not to get started.
Exactly.
Doing nothing gets you never started. So it's sounds obvious, but like the reality is that is where a lot of people get stuck. They're just like, okay, I'm going to read another book.
It's very easy to go down that path. I'm not really ready yet. I got to read more. 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 And you got to just like stop yourself, or have someone stop you. It's 100%. Like we need a support group for aspiring real estate investors.
100%. It's totally
Hello,
true.
My name is JP. I've been a potential real estate investor for 12 years and I haven't started yet. Hi, JP. Welcome to the right, that sort of thing.
Okay, who's ready to share next? No, but I mean, it's a story that I think a lot of us go through some level of analysis paralysis, but eventually, like, you just got to do something. And so find something that's comfortable for your situation and go ahead and do it. And then you can find another avenue if that doesn't work well. So, well, JP, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been great talking to you. I think people are going to get a ton of value out of this episode. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Jason. And I'm glad to be here. And this is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks listening, I know you're going to love this. Make sure you connect with JP. Please like, rate, and review the show so we can get more great guests. And thank you all for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?